An Overlooked podcast. A lot to get into today. We are pushing up the show earlier, a day earlier, because we're going to be very busy tomorrow. We have the press conference, which we're going to be talking about to start the show, paying tribute to Dave Hunter and everything. So first off, we'll start the show with that, and then we'll be getting into some college basketball. It was a crazy, wicked weekend, a lot of action, and then obviously after that, we'll conclude with some free agent frenzy going through both of our teams and the major signings across the NFL. So, Craig, how you feeling today?
Feeling good. Najeh, how many games do you think you checked out so far?
I say double digits for sure, probably
Okay.
10 plus. Yeah, for sure. How about you?
Say 8.
8. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not bad.
I know, but I wish I could have done more. It's like we literally had no weekend at all.
No, we didn't.
It's just
We had
insane.
we had our event that was Saturday.
Yep.
Scoreboard for me on Friday. Yeah, Lakeside event Saturday, and then Sunday I was kind of prepped for the week, and then we had to be here at 8 a.m. this morning.
Yep.
So a lot going on, right?
Yeah, for sure.
A lot going on. But let's talk about the first topic. Let's talk about just your thoughts on Dave Hunter, just him receiving the special honor, and then just what he's meant to the Corky Kell Classic as a whole.
I'm going to start with, I think, what is, in my opinion, one of the coolest points about the whole thing. The Corky Kell, when we think of Georgia high school football, it's undeniable that there's this rivalry between Atlanta and South Georgia. It's always been like that. Valdosta, that was the top program in the entire state. They have the most wins in the entire country. And so Valdosta was dominating Georgia for all these years. We have Dave Hunter, who's up in Gwinnett County at Brookwood, and the whole conversation is, can one of these metro Atlanta schools build something that's able to compete with the Valdostas, the Camdens, the Lowndes, these South Georgia powerhouses that are just dominating? Well, Dave Hunter was that guy at Brookwood, and then he creates the Corky Kell, and then we get more of these matchups. It's not just going to be in the playoffs where you'll have a Brookwood against a Valdosta. Just a few years into the Corky Kell in '96, we saw Brookwood square off with Valdosta game 1, and then they rematched in the state championships. Brookwood got the victory. And so I think being able to invite the South Georgia powerhouses, put them on a stage against the best of Metro Atlanta, that was kind of the original vision Dave had in representing the entire state. And then from then, it's obviously just grown to multiple days, multiple games. But I think putting that North versus South dynamic in it, I think that was huge.
No, I agree. I mean, it's created a great thing. I mean, we've even seen some of the schools from down south playing in the Corky Kell, the Valdostas of the world, the Lowndes of the world. So yeah, it's definitely a big event. Teams that want to play in, I think, is good for exposure for your program. Great way to open the season, obviously, and it's meant a lot. So just how special do you think of a moment it'll be him being honored at the reception?
It's so huge because not only did someone have to do it, but they had to do it the right way. And from the start, the first ever Corky Kell was 1992 in the Georgia Dome. It was the first ever football game played there before the Falcons, before any college football. And then getting high school football into the Georgia Dome in '92, Georgia Dome didn't last too long. It obviously closed down in 2016. But there were over 500 high school games played in there over the years. And that's I got to play in there twice in the Corky Kell. And so you add just the fact that you're playing in that venue from the start, it kind of made Corky Kell, okay, what's going on with this event? And then you see it now. Every other state looks at Georgia kicking off the season. And that's another thing. Before the Corky Kell, there wasn't a thing such as 0 week. So Dave Hunter and them had to negotiate to start the season a week early. So these teams were the only games going on in the state at that time. Now more teams play in that week 1. So it really did have the spotlight specifically on the Corky Kell before any of the other games got started. So people could see pretty much what the top contenders in the state that season looked like week 1, and then the season would kick off the next week. But now it just kind of kicks off all at once. But we even have the early start with Wednesday. So It really has had like a drastic impact on just how the season starts. And then that momentum always carries on.
I think, too, you can point out from it, it's also allowed maybe you could say other games for teams, let's say, that don't want to come travel up, like maybe like a Lowndes or Valdosta, right? They're able to do like these Florida Georgia classics. We got now the Great Atlanta Bash that's on Saturday after the Corky Kell. So I think it's cool. The Freedom Bowl in Milton. So I think it's cool. Maybe it was when the precedent kind of for the other events that we see nowadays, just for other schools playing each other and some of those top programs going head to head, whether it's in state or even out of state.
Absolutely. And just proposing to teams just what does it look like to play. I mean, yeah, there's jamborees sometimes, but just like a big time 3 game lineup, 4 game lineup, double header. We saw it last year. Fayette County launched their version of the Corky Kell, and that was great matchups. You had Sandy Creek, Stars Mill, Whitewater, um, McIntosh, a bunch of other powerhouses, and so it really has become the model. But I think just keeping it going for over 30 years now, through all the obstacles, all the different teams that have come through it, all the great players. That's what the most impressive thing about it is. Even just the venue changes. It wasn't just COVID. It wasn't just the not being able to play at Mercedes Benz certain years. I mean, they really have just been hit with a lot of challenges to keep it going at the high standard year in and year out. And they did it. I mean, people forget the Mercedes Benz Stadium was supposed to open in August in 2017. The roof didn't work, it got pushed back. And so we had to actually go to Georgia State
Wow.
for that. And we were the first ever football games played there. So the Corky Cow was the first ever at the Georgia Dome, first football game, period, played at Georgia State Old Turner Field. So that's the type of just dedication to keep this event going that Dave Hunter has been at the forefront of.
No, I agree. I mean, you're going to see even this season. I'm not going to reveal it. We do have some news on it, but I'm going to reveal that right around when the season starts. Keep it to myself. But even something special is going to be at the Corky Kell this year. So you guys stay tuned for that and for all our episodes. We'll reveal that right before the season starts. But I think even that says a lot about how special it is, and even an association wanting to potentially implement something like that is pretty cool. And they're using Corky kind of as that kind of board to do that. So I'll leave that news there. What games are you most excited to see?
Well, obviously, we talked about Walton Grayson.
Yep.
That's going to be big time. I think it will say a lot about what Walton's able to do this season. They've been probably the most consistently good team week one out of the gates ever since Coach Bruner got there. They've only lost once. That was last year to Mill Creek. They lost on the last second. I think they're going to come out and really give Grayson a tough challenge. They're going to have a new head coach, a lot of new pieces, and you play a well-oiled machine like Walton. I think that could be a big statement because you look at the past wins they've had, every single one of them has been exciting. It's been close. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and like really put up a dominant performance. Let's see the other ones. I think, Creekside and Rome, a rematch from last year. I thought it was raining in that game. It was obviously hot as hell. Uh, that was a great matchup, a good 5A matchup against a 6A team. I think this year will be even better. I think with Reese Fountain at Rome getting into his senior year, he's ready to make a statement.
Yep.
He's playing with a chip on his shoulder. You got Creekside. They're coming off a season where they thought they could have won state. They fell short, I believe, to Warner Robins. I think that one's going to really be special.
Yeah, no, I agree. That'll definitely be a good one. I'm curious to see for me, just real quick. One game is Kell opening up the season. I think they play Johns Creek.
No, Parkview.
Thank you. Play Parkview. I'm just curious to see. Parkview just hired their new head coach. That was just recently announced. So I'm curious to see how he's going to fit in the fold. How will they look without Eric Godfrey as their coach? A lot of talent there. Jalen Crawford, Mike Matthews, Kyrie Spain. They got talent all over the field. So just how will that look in week one against Kell with team again? Bunch of talent. Kyle Vaca, add him with Peyton Zachary, who's blowing up in the recruiting world. Bryce Clavin has one more year at the helm. He's been very spectacular across his tenure there. So I just can't wait to see that game is going to be a really good one too. I think to kind of open it up. So I can't wait to see kind of how that game happens. So that's the ones I'm eyes on.
Yeah, for sure. Kell is a huge storyline this year.
Yep.
You mentioned Bryce Clavin. This guy, he's squatting over 500 pounds. He's running a legit 4.4. He rushed for, I think, 750 yards last year. He completed 70% of his passes, and then they add even more pieces offensively. And it's year 2 of Bobby May coming in there. I think that will be a great first look at what this Kell team looks like. They were great last year, only 2 losses, but I think we're really going to see what is being built there. And then we'll get to see Creekside later on. And that's another big time contender in 5A. So I think just seeing Kell at first and then Creekside stack up against Rome, we'll get a really good idea week 1 of what those two teams are going to be able to do.
And that's a good point. And then just a quick news headline I saw just now. Milton just scheduled their spring game. They were looking for one for a little minute, but they got one with Cass. So that's going to be the spring game in May, about 2 months from now. So that'll be really intriguing to see. But that's all I got as far as major news across the high school sports. Did you see anything, any headlines this past weekend?
I saw Altoona just hired their new coach. I think his name is Brad Smith. I forgot where he came from. He might have been another coordinator. I think the other news, we'll obviously talk about it more coming up, but the Corky Kell 7-on-7 this year is going to be really big.
Yeah.
Last year, we got a great look at teams like Creekside.
Kennesaw Mountain.
Yeah, Kennesaw Mountain looked outstanding. Obviously, 7-on-7 is different. I thought Boo Mitchell was hilarious. He's like, it's not real football, which I get his point. Listen, if you're going over the middle of the field and you know you aren't going to get tackled, it's a lot easier to catch the ball. We get that. But you can still see the way the quarterback goes out there and leads, how just the tempo they're playing with. You can tell who's going to have athletes, who's going to have special playmakers offensively, who's getting after it defensively. So I think it's a great look to see the skill players. This year's going to be really big, and it'll be just another great kind of part of the Corky Kell portfolio.
No, I agree. I mean, it will be. And then this year, can we announce this year? Well, just know it's going to be downtown. I don't want to exactly reveal, but just know it'll be downtown this year. It'll be a lot of fun. I believe it's going to be broadcasted as well. So, I mean, that event is going to be super special. Last year, it was at Roswell Area Park, I believe. But this year, yeah, they're moving it downtown. I'm not going to say where because I don't know if I'm allowed to reveal that yet, but just know it's downtown.
Yep, it'll be more teams, multiple days this time.
3 days.
And just a ton of media attention will be there. I think great footage comes out of it. But having it where we're going to have it, I think it's going to be even better because it'll be more centralized. People will know exactly where it is, who's playing at each field. And it's just, I mean, it's insane. One team, if you make it to the finals, it's like in one day you're playing like 11 or 12 games in a couple hours. And you just get to see great matchups. And there is pride in it. It's like Jeremy Hecklinski against like a Bryce Clavin. It's like which quarterback's gonna ball out more.
Yeah,
it's like,
got those storylines. No, I agree. He definitely got those big storylines. I can't wait to see it. But man, we got to transition to go ahead and go to some basketball. Just what was your favorite game or best games you've seen? Recapping the first 2 rounds of basketball.
Well, I really, honestly, I enjoyed last night watching the UConn St. Mary's game. I thought it was great basketball. Teams were getting after it. I think what we're noticing, though, once you make it past the first round, it's a huge weight off your shoulder. No one wants to get upset. No one wants to be a one and done. And you even look at like a team like Tennessee, it's like they play a really close game out of the gates and then just dominate the second round. You look at a 15 or 16 team, you just beat a number 2 seed in the first round or a number 1. So your second round matchup might even be easier. So I think once that first round actually kind of plays out, you can really see the difference kind of in that second round. The pressure, teams settle in a little bit more. But man, it was definitely wild. I don't know if all these upsets say that maybe these number 1 and 2 seeds aren't as like the gap isn't as wide as we used to think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or are the teams that get in with those higher seeds, are they actually just closing the gap? It's like, I don't know. But there were definitely a ton of upsets and a lot more that could have happened.
Well, I think you brought up a great point. When you think about it, usually 1 season before, because like it never would happen, right? So that's the second time in history that happened. FDU upset Purdue. But I think it's a great point you're making. I think it's more of a closing the gap than anything because one, remember, you used to have the top players in the country in high school, they would go straight to college and they would be there for 2 or 3 years. Talking about like back in the day, 90s and 2000s and things like that, before they would go on to the next route, NBA or anything like that. But now you have multiple routes you can go. Right, you got NILs now, so they could be there for a couple of years and then leave, or they can go to G League, be there for a year, get highly drafted. So I think all that plays an effect, and then you don't have like some of those name brand schools like the UNCs. I think it's the first time or the second time out of 3 years that UNC is not in the Sweet 16, Kansas is not in Sweet 16, Kentucky's not in Sweet 16, or Duke. So I think that's really interesting to see. Right, like those are the blue blood programs you always think about. Oh, they're going to always be good. They're going to always be there when it's said and done. But as you mentioned, I think it's those schools like the Kennesaw States who gave Xavier a match. They gave them more of a matchup than Pittsburgh did.
Yep.
And I think it's those teams playing those harder schedules, playing in those tournaments, playing a couple games against those marquee teams early in the season, finding out what they have, and then being able to kind of down the line, obviously playing in a tough conference and things like that, winning the conference championship, but already knowing, hey, we got the talent to beat these guys. We got the talent to compete. And I think that's why you're seeing it happen on a more consistent basis.
100%. There's so many factors that are leading to this. I also think just probably 15, 20 years ago, you talked about the one and done, but it's like you used to go to a college knowing you're going to be there playing 2 or 3 years. Exactly. You're going to have 2 or 3 years in the tournament trying to make a big special run. And then use that to potentially get drafted. Now, let's just be honest. The NBA, you watch the first 2 rounds of the draft, half of them aren't even from America. There's so many European players. It's insane. I calculated it a couple years ago. It was like 30, 40%. And it's not just the European players. It's all over now. And so you'll have a team like, let's just even say Princeton. It's like maybe those guys have been in that program 3 or 4 years now. They're going up against a batch of really talented players, but you have that multiple years of playing together. The ball moves great. You guys are confident. And then what I keep seeing in these games, and it really is amazing, it's like these tipped balls, these offensive rebounds. It's just insane how some teams are just better at it than others. It's like they just tend to, I don't know, it's like
more of a scrappy thing. Like they're more scrappy and like they got to go get it more so of a team. Like, okay, I know we got our 2 stars. We can kind of depend on them. They're going to take us home. But as you said, when you're playing in the tournament, sometimes you got to die for that loose ball. You got to be able to be scrappy and be able to, keep those possessions going. Because then when you can't hit the shot, then it's more difficult. Then you got to find and scramble and find a way to do it. A good point is Michigan State, right? So they were shooting the ball third highest in the NCAA. I think they were shooting at 39%, right? So in the game they played against Marquette, they shot like 1 for 15 or something. So then they had to find another area of their game that they could use. And they were being scrappy. They were getting offensive boards. They would go drive into the lane. So I think the big part you're mentioning is just the adaptability. That's the key now. You got to be able to adapt as a team. And if you can't do that, you're not going to go far in the tournament.
100%. I think even in that Kansas loss, in Arkansas, miss a free throw at the end, and the shooter got his own rebound. It's like, how does that happen? That is rare. Like, how many – you play basketball, you're on the foul line, you miss it, and you get the rebound. That never happens. But some teams are just good at tipping the ball and making something happen when the shots aren't falling. It's like that is such a key area. Those lead to just devastating momentum-changing plays. It's like, and we saw it all during the basketball state champions too, but it's like you miss a free throw, someone tips it out, a guy's wide open for a 3, he knocks it down. That's devastating.
I agree. I mean, that's a good point. And then what do you think? Obviously, we got to talk about the kind of bone-scratching play in the first round of, I think his name is Clark. Yeah, just like, what do you think he was thinking there? I mean, he had a guy on the flank. He had a timeout in his pocket. Just what do you think of that play?
What was the game? Wasn't there a Patriots player that did something similar?
You're talking about, I think Jacoby Myers now plays for the Raiders, the game he was playing against. Yeah, he threw the ball all the way back, but he said he was trying to make a play. Yeah.
So –
and it was returned for the touchdown by Chandler Jones.
That's right. That's what it reminded me of. It's just like, and I think this one was honestly worst.
For sure.
So what was the score at the time?
So they were up right? The team is
They were
trailing.
up by
They're up by
2.
two. They
Yeah.
were trailing by 3. I mean, yeah, no, they were up by 2. They hit the 3 to go up 1. So all he has to do is they have to foul him. There's not a lot of time left. He has a guy on the flank that he could have passed the ball to, didn't pass it to him, or he could have called a timeout because he's getting double. But then he just like, oh no, and then just kind of just threw it.
Yeah, with what, like 6 seconds left?
It's probably like 8 seconds.
8 seconds. Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then Furman comes down and just drills the 3.
Yeah, knocks down the 3.
Yeah, that's a really bad loss for Virginia. I thought it was crazy.
No,
I mean, the first time I saw it, it's just like it's one of the worst plays I've seen in a while.
No, for sure. But I don't know. I feel like every year, like Virginia has a good, decent team, and they just disappoint in the postseason. I don't know what it is, but they just always get there. If they're whether a 2, 3, 4 seed, 5 seed, and they just I don't know, just like can never come together for them. But that's what stood out to us. Can Princeton continue to make a Cinderella run? I think that's a topic we should discuss. I think they could. They're going to play Creighton in the Sweet 16. That's the matchup I believe is going to be on Friday. They've already beat Missouri. They've already beat Arizona. They play good team basketball. They move the ball. I could see them making an Elite 8 appearance.
Yeah, I mean I think Alabama looks really good. I think the Arkansas win shows that the SEC really was legit this year. I think Tennessee's playing really well. I like them.
Yep.
But yeah, of course they can get past Creighton. The win over Arizona, as I said, you beat a 2 seed in the first round.
Yeah.
It might get easier. It's like you're going to eventually run into a team that's advanced past the first 2-3 rounds, and it gets a little tougher. But yeah, Princeton, I think they're definitely kind of in terms of Cinderellas. I think they have it going on. They've made some noise before.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they can make an Elite 8 performer. I think Elite 8 is probably where the Cinderella runner kind of run out. They'll probably play a marquee team then. But yeah, I think they could beat Creighton and make an Elite 8 appearance for sure. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. My favorite games I'm looking out for this weekend, obviously, is going to be UCLA versus Gonzaga, 3 versus 2. I think that's going to be a great game. Will UCLA have an answer for Drew Timme is the biggest question. I think he's just kind of a do-it-all player, really good on the glass. Really just, matchup nightmare. He's good at passing outside the block in the post. And then Jaime Vasquez has been having a great run, 24 points in his last game. I'm looking out for that guard play for Gonzaga versus UCLA. I think that's going to be an incredible game. And then UConn and Arkansas, Devontae Davis had 25 points in the last one, and Ricky Council had 21. And then Ademe Sonoga is a player to watch for UConn. He's averaging 26 points per game in the tournament. So that's a guy for UConn to watch out for. And then Miami and Houston. Houston nearly got upset early, but they've been able to battle back from the half. Norchai Amir, he was out for a little while, but he's came back and made his presence felt. Miami has a really good team, so I think that's going to be a really good matchup between those two teams to decide who goes to Elite 8. And then Xavier and Texas. Xavier, as we know, nearly got upset by Kennesaw State, but they, blew out the competition in the second round pretty easy. You can make the argument that Kennesaw State was a better matchup for them, but they won. Texas is having a great deep run again, and they got a really good team. Marcus Carr, Sir'Jabari Rice, Dylan Dessou. I mean, they got talent all over their roster, so that's going to be a good matchup between both of those teams. Can and Xavier string it together? Does Sean Miller have a plan for that really deep Texas roster?
Texas has been good. We've talked about them a lot, how they were struggling to start games or having to do too many comebacks.
Yep.
Well, they've advanced past the first 2 rounds. So clearly they've fixed some things. They've adjusted. I think what you said, that Miami matchup, how good is Miami? They've had pretty easy doings, easy pickings the first 2 rounds. They're running into a Houston team wearing the number 1 seed. I think that'll be a good matchup.
Yep.
And then, the UCLA game?
UCLA and Gonzaga.
Yeah.
That's another one on my own. I think that's going to be a good
I like
one.
UCLA this year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is Drew Timme's last year.
I picked them to come out of that quadrant. I think they're going to do it.
They're going to do it?
Yep.
I think that'll be an interesting one. And then obviously Saturday, Sunday will be the Elite 8. So there'll be a lot of good action this weekend. So those are my matchups. Any other ones that you thought were standouts?
No, but with UCLA, it's like I don't know. I pictured the Final Four or Elite Eight. It's just like that classic UCLA jersey, the cheerleaders on the sideline. It's just going to happen. They're going to beat Gonzaga. I think. Well, I really like Tennessee, so I mean, I'll watch that game against FAU, and yeah, Kansas State, Michigan State will be huge with Kansas out.
Yeah.
That's a boost for Kansas State. I know their fans are definitely happy anytime Kansas loses.
No, for sure. So we'll see. I mean, yeah, Tom Izzo, I think, got a good group of kids. He always seems to make some deep playoff runs. Usually when they're a higher seed, I feel like they go a little bit further. Yep. I don't know what it is, but when they're like kind of like favored, not so much. When we're playing with house money and they're like a higher seed, they always seem to do well. So I think that's a team to watch out for as well.
Yep, when they're a 7 or even a 8, 9, or 10, you're 100% right on that.
Yeah, they're just a different breed. But that's going to conclude us for our basketball segment and college segment. We're going to move to NFL, major action there. Free agency frenzy took place the last couple of weeks or so. So, Craig, for you, just what were some big deals that stood out to you? Some players you're excited to see going into next season?
I think with the Chiefs, Jawan Taylor,
from Jacksonville.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big signing. From what I've seen, though, they're saying that the offensive tackle position is kind of in a league-wide reset right now based on some of these major contracts. That was a position where for years it's like, oh, that's the first position you need to take in the draft. Left tackle, left tackle, left tackle. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that's back, but I think it's pretty obvious. If you don't have a good left tackle,
you're done.
Yeah. You have to shore that up. And so I think that market's really been hot. The Chiefs seem to be letting some of their starters or contributors hit the market. Some of them were walking. I think they're going to be obviously aggressive, happy in the draft. They have done really well in that department. And I think they aren't afraid to introduce or bring in new pieces. So I think with them, they've kind of sat back in free agency. They aren't going to go out and spend a lot. They're going to try to build through the draft. But, I mean, there's been a ton of movement for sure. It's insane. I looked at the list just in the last month because I was going to try to look at it. I mean, it was over 30 pages of all these moves. It's insane.
No, it is. I mean, every year, free agency always impresses and always has so much just going on. What do you think about just losing your left tackle, Orlando Brown, and him actually signing with the Bengals? I mean, that was obviously a big move for us. Our left tackle was not too happy about it. Jonah Williams, they're going to try to move him to right tackle. He requested a trade. But I think for us, that helped us out a lot because he gave up the most sacks in the league at his position. So I think that's something we've needed to shore up. That's been a problem in the last couple of our playoff runs. I've been our offensive line. Going into the game, we weren't healthy. We had 3 backups, but I think they've done a good job, signing Cody Ford, getting the big franchise left tackle in Orlando Brown. Just what did he mean to the Chiefs when he played for you? What's your thoughts on that? And then just the Bengals snapping him.
It was huge. And first of all, coming from the Chiefs, like versatility doesn't even say it. It's like you have to be so in tune with the playbook and just getting up to the line, all the different things they do, all the inside shovels and motions and quick runs in the red zone and at the goal line. It's like he's able to do it all. I really liked Orlando Brown. I had a feeling we're going to lose him. I think him going to the Bengals is a huge deal because he's going to be playing against the Chiefs.
You getting ready for that matchup, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel you.
No, it's a huge deal. But hasn't there also this year, or was it last season, they introduced like the performance bonus for a lot of these players, offensive linemen that I think if they graded well or played the majority of snaps, like whoever on each team played the most snaps, they would get like a significant bonus.
I think that's something that is in play.
Yep. Maybe that's impacting some of these offensive lineman moves where if you're the right guard that might not have that Orlando Brown contract or interest in the market, but you played the most snaps out of anyone on your team or top 3, you're getting that $800,000 bonus for that season. So I think that durability and being in the right spot. I mean, that's a huge plus for offensive linemen that definitely. Um, I don't think they get enough things for what that job really is.
No, I agree with you. I mean, you like you said, the left tackle position is so important now. You see a lot of money dealt out to it. You have to be able to protect, and you're going to get some of the best edge rushers in the game. Like some guys are just aliens, like the Myles Garrett's, the T.J. Watts, the Micah Parsons of the world. So just to be able to defend in that, sometimes you have to go one on one with those guys. Sometimes you don't get the
100%.
chip or the help.
It's insane to think about, like how good some of these guys grade out for the entire season. It's like you're in a crucial 3rd and 2. You're playing in the Super Bowl. You can't miss that block, and it's like there's guys that don't. It's like that's a very valuable thing to have on your team.
It is. So I'll say for me, at our free agency moves, I ain't gonna lie, Craig, I was nervous. Like we weren't making no moves up to that point. It was like 3 days, nothing. Like we lost Jesse Bates, who is Atlanta Falcons now. We lost Von Bell, who's at the Panthers. We lost Hayden Hurst, who's at the Panthers. We lost Samaje Perine. So I'm like, yo, what are we doing? Like, are we gonna go get somebody? So then that news just came out of nowhere. I was happy about that. And then we signed Nick Scott, the safety from the Rams. So he's kind of like a run stuffer. He's really good at creating contact and things like that. So I was excited about that. So I do like the moves they're making. Obviously, the big premise the last 2 years for us has been O-line, which I like. So now it's just coming together, and I felt like towards the end of the year it came together really well. They were protecting well, and I felt up prior to the injury they looked like a really good playoff offensive line. So obviously they know what the franchise quarterback needs and wants, and the Bengals are doing that. So now we just got to get a couple spots. Tight end is another position. We need some more running backs and things like that. So I was satisfied though.
Yeah, no, 100%. As long as they're improving that area, that was the big question. But even last season, it's like against the Chiefs, definitely a winnable game. Against the Bengals, against the Bills, you guys dealing with injuries on the offensive line, beat the heck out of them. They just ran all over them. And so you bring back an offensive line next year that's able to hold its own, win, and you got Joe Burrow back there. I think that's all you guys need to do. It's just, I think the big question is keeping that defense up to that standard it was last year, which was exceptional.
Yeah, man, that's the biggest thing. We're going to see defensively.
I think they said you guys were the best tackling team in the NFL last year in terms of the fewest missed tackles.
Yeah. I mean, Lou Anarumo does a great job coaching them up. We were able to sign, I didn't mention this, we signed Jermaine Pratt to a 3-year deal, so that's great. But yeah, I agree, man. We're going to have to see. Only spot that worries me, Craig, is our secondary. We're kind of like what you guys did. We're really young there. Obviously we get the veteran that comes in as a safety, go along with Dax Hill, who we drafted last year. But, the safety spot is a place that I'm still keeping my eye on. Obviously, corner, we're younger. We got Cam Taylor-Britt. We got Chidobe Awuzie. We got Mike Hilton. But defense is going to be an interesting position next year. But I'll say this real quick, and we'll transition to some more deals. I would not be surprised if the Bengals, a 28 overall pick, if they trade or move up, whatever they decide to do. I won't be surprised to get the really great tackle out of Ohio State, the right tackle, DeJuan Jones. That would be a great move. I think they do that, they've solidified the line for the next 5 years because you already got Orlando Brown on a 4-year deal. Obviously, you have Lyle Collins, but, he's been hurt. He has back issues and things like that. You go get the young guy, have him come in until Collins is ready, and if he impresses, you roll with Jones. And I think if you go look at his tape and him playing Michigan, really great right tackle, if he's still available. We'll see what they do. But now they go into the draft for being able to choose the best available guy.
No, that's a great point. And then just back to the defense. You look at last year's, they tackle great. You guys produced a ton of those timely turnovers. And it's like other teams, they seem to have like a weak point or late in the game, a guy gives up a big play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you guys had that problem last year. I really don't.
No, I don't think we did either for the most part. No, I mean, big plays, not really. I mean, obviously to you guys, that bonehead play at the end, but no, for the most part, I mean, we didn't really give up big plays. They were a sound defense. And like I said, I think Lou Anarumo did a good job of disguising coverages and, keeping the defense honest. So we'll see. I think another position, kind of how you guys got with obviously Chris Jones dominating that game against us.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys no longer have Frank Clark, but we're gonna have to get another edge rusher. I think the edge rusher is underrated. That's something we got to get to. Obviously, we got Trey Hendrickson, but we're gonna need something else to kind of help spell him or on the other side as well, help him out.
That guy that at the end of the game they have to pay attention to.
Yes, they have to put more attention to for sure. But Other moves, I'll go ahead and put these out, Craig, get your kind of reaction. Laramie Tunsil for the Texans, he signed a major deal. He got $50 million guaranteed, the highest paid tackle in the game in NFL history. Yeah, I know, Graham, insane. CJ Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he signed 1 year deal, $8 million with the Lions. That's going to hurt the Eagles secondary. I think they lost both of their starting safeties as well this year. Adam Thielen signed a 3 year deal with the Panthers. Jamal Williams signed a 3 year deal with the Saints. Eagles re-signed both of the corners, Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Cowboys just traded for Brandon Cooks for a couple 5th and 6th round picks. So they solidified that receiving corps in that receiving room. Jimmy G signed a 3 year, $65.5 million deal with the Raiders. Jesse Bates signed with the hometown Falcons for 4 years, $64 million. And then the big one, me and you got to talk about, Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets. So he's already said, it's not been in total yet, but he says he intends to play with the Jets. He said this last week on the Pat McAfee show. So let's just assume, Craig, that he's with the Jets. What does that mean for the AFC? And I'm going to break it down what I think it means for the division and everything. But what do you think him going to the Jets means for the AFC, barring a deal happens and they trade those first-round picks and get him on an aging quarterback? Man, what do you think?
I still think the conversation centers around Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. I think if he did come in, people would say, oh, no, now he's in the conversation. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. It's like, I like Aaron Rodgers. I think he's a good quarterback. I've never understood, and I'm not saying I'm like a film expert or quarterback expert, but it's like everyone just always acting like he's just like the greatest quarterback of all time. It's like I watched games last year, and maybe it's just that the Packers didn't have a lot of talent at the receiver corps. It's like their offense did not look good at all. And so I'm not putting it on him. It's just as a Chiefs fan, if Aaron Rodgers is on the Jets, and even as a Bengals fan, I feel like Bengals fans and Chiefs fans aren't necessarily going to be afraid of playing against Aaron Rodgers.
No.
The Lions swept them last year. But the Jets do have a
More
really talented roster.
And defense.
But exactly what you said. It's like those other players across the board, across the roster are going to win the game. I don't think one guy in particular can just come in first year and get it done. I know Brady did it at Tampa Bay.
In the NFC.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to say this. It's a big move on their part. They get him. They're going to finally get a franchise signal caller. But it's like, what are you willing to bet for that is the thing. Because you're only going to get – we know how kind of – I'm trying to think of the word – non-committal he's been to being long-term, right? Like Green Bay gave him his money last year, 3 years, $150 million, right? So he's probably going to give you another good 2 to 3 years. So are you willing to bet in those 2 or 3 years he's going to win a Super Bowl, right? Like you just mentioned, you got all that competition. Chiefs aren't going nowhere, right? People say the Bills aren't going anywhere. People say the Bengals aren't going anywhere. And got your other dark horses, Chargers, Jaguars, right? So does it make them better? For sure. It's better than Zach Wilson being the quarterback. And we know that they would have been a playoff team if they had Aaron Rodgers last year, right? They have the defense. They got Quentin Williams, Sauce Gardner, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Offensively, they just signed Alan Lazard. They're going to pair that with Garrett Wilson Jr., who just won Offensive Rookie of the Year. So obviously they got talent. But as you said, can have the talent, but it's a team thing, right? It can't be all about A-Rod. I love A-Rod too. He used to be one of my favorite quarterbacks, right? From a talent perspective, he's probably one of the best ever. And that's why I say key, not from accomplishing, not from maybe on-field play, but the best talented ever, you could say Aaron Rodgers. But can he make it come together is the big thing. And like you said, you're going to have to go against these big quarterbacks. Like you're going to go against the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, Joe Burrows, Justin Herberts, the Trevor Lawrences. Can he do it? I'm not saying he can't. He can, but the AFC, there's levels to this. It's more steep, I think, than any other conference. And then I think this is division. Bro, like if we look at the AFC East now, I mean, obviously Tua is still a question mark, right? They picked up his 5th-year option, $22 million, right? You got Jalen Ramsey now on the outside, along with Xavier Howard and Jalen Phillips in the defensive rush, and then also Christian Wilkins in the interior, right? So you got the Dolphins there, along with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. That's just the Dolphins. That's in your division. You got Buffalo. You're still going to have Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Jordan Poyer, their defense. They lost their linebacker, so-and-so, Terrell Edmonds. But you're still going to have the Bills, right? Patriots are still kind of a question mark. But let's just say those are the two other contenders. Still got to mess with the Dolphins. You still got to mess with the Bills. So I think in the AFC East, they're just going to be up each other. That's going to be a really interesting division. See who kind of comes out.
I think what you're saying is the AFC East is a lot better than the NFC North was.
For sure. Yes. It's like night and day.
Yeah.
Yes, night and day. Right now, for sure. AFC East is way better than the NFC
that's
North.
top competition.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Every time I watched him last year, it's like, it's Aaron Rodgers. Was that his best season ever? Of course not.
No.
So it's like, was it just the situation he was in, and now he's gonna potentially go to the Jets, and then he's back to best season ever, career year? That'd be pretty interesting to see.
But yeah, even back to your point, they got remember, Craig, they got 4 straight years they were in the NFC Championship game, and they did not go to the Super Bowl. Lost to San Fran multiple times, and they lost to like 2 other teams. I can't think off the top of my head. But you had all the talent that you had the number 1 receiver, I think, in the game. In Devontae Adams, right?
Yep.
You had the talent. You had defensively, you had the talent. So it's like now, to me, even in the AFC, there's no excuse. You got to get it done. You got to get it done. So I mean, we'll see. I think it's an interesting move. Obviously, Jet fans are excited for what it means, but as you mentioned, how long is the project going to be? It's going to be tough. Like, what is the expectation in year 1? Is the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. So it's like if they don't get to the Super Bowl, if you get the playoffs and you lose in the AFC Championship game, it's a season of failure. So I think it's tough.
Yeah,
they're kind of in a tough spot.
I haven't watched the full McAfee interview yet, but yeah, we'll see what the timeline is on it. I just think after what we saw last year with the disappointment at Green Bay, to see him go from that to playing top form MVP season, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean
he had so many red zone interceptions. It's like, I know he's not throwing to Tyreek Hill or whatever, but still, it's like he just did not look like he was at his top form last year.
No.
He did not look happy.
No, he didn't. And that's kind of interesting. I mean, he hasn't looked happy in a little while, but I mean, obviously money isn't everything, but I felt for the most part they've tried to accommodate him, gave him the money. I don't know. It's tough. But at least with the Jets, he found a good team and a good roster. But anything before we close the show today, Craig, you wanted to hit on NFL, anything that we didn't talk about that just stood out to you over the weekend?
Not in particular. So when is the draft going to be coming up, though? That's
April 27th to 28th.
April 27th, so just over a month. I think will be really interesting. Obviously, I like seeing where guys that we saw ball out in college go. I like seeing where all the Georgia guys go. Last year was really impressive with Cedar Grove dominating, the state of Georgia dominating. I think we had 23% of the draft picks played high school football in Georgia. So I'm going to get that list ready, and that's kind of where my focus is going to be, just looking at these mock drafts and having something to reference when all these crazy trades start going down.
I agree. I can't wait. I love the draft. It's underrated, I think, in some aspects, especially the later rounds, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. You might be like, I don't know who that is, but we seen from you guys, those guys can make a difference. Getting those Trent McDuffies, getting those Isaiah Pacheco's in the 7th round, that the Brock Purdy's of the world, Mr. Irrelevance, that makes a difference. So just because your name isn't called on the first day, does not mean you can't make your impact on the field on that first year. So I can't wait. I'm excited. I actually have something I'm going to say after. It depends on who Carolina takes the number 1 pick. But I like the moves they're making. That could be a dangerous team next year. But I'm going to get more in depth about it after who they pick first overall and how the draft goes. So it'll be interesting. But no, I'm excited. The draft is great. I'm interested to see who we're going to get, who you guys get, what they decide to do at certain positions. So I can't wait.
For sure. Yeah, everyone needs to follow us tomorrow. We'll be at Mercedes Benz Stadium at the official press conference. It'll be exciting.
Yes, so go to ScoreATL.com for that. Follow ScoreATL, Score Atlanta on Twitter. We'll have all the social media and things like that updated tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, guys. Hope you have a good week. Sorry we had to do this on Monday. Just going to be very busy tomorrow. We're not going to have time. So we'll see you guys next Tuesday for another episode, and we see you then.
And shout out to Jordan.